Hey, what's up, everyone? You are listening or watching the My Comic Book Journey podcast. I'm your host, Kennedy. And for today's episode, we are going to talk about The Incredible Hulk, issue 329, March. This is March of... So it was released on December 9th, 1986, and the cover date is March 1987. But this one was rather interesting. This one was written and penciled by Alan Milgrom. Inkers Danny Bulanadi, colorist Peter Scotese, letterer Rick Parker, and the editors were Bob Harras and Bobbie Chase. So, what about this issue that I enjoyed? So this one was rather interesting because a few issues back, Rick Jones, good friend to the Avengers and especially the Incredible Hulk, got exposed to some gamma ray. For those of you who have not read The Incredible Hulk issue number 1, it started out, with Dr. Bruce Banner saying that there was a human, Rick, messing around, gotten, during a test site, and as Bruce tried to save him, and he did save him, he ended up being exposed to the gamma ray, changing him to the Hulk. So in this issue, or this arc, you could say that this was during a time when Bruce Banner and the Hulk were separated. The Hulk is now the Gray Hulk, and both are, they are at odds against each other. And you can say Bruce Banner is quite in a funk right now because he's trying to. He wants to be normal again. He doesn't want to. He's been going through some major crap in his life, and his relationships, and everything's just not going right. And now his best friend, or his good friend, Rick Jones, has now turned into the Hulk, and Shield is trying to find out how is it that there's another Green Hulk, and how did it whisk Bruce Banner away? And as Shield tries to look for this other Green Hulk, because they're thinking that the Green Hulk and Bruce Banner were separated somehow. The truth is, the Hulk is still there within Bruce Banner, but Rick Jones got exposed to the gamma rays, and now Rick is starting to have Rick is starting to understand the loneliness and the feelings that Bruce Banner has gone through. And I think this is really interesting because in a way no one really understood Bruce Banner. When usually Bruce in the past, when he turns to the Hulk, it was always Hulk smash. It wasn't an intelligent Hulk. The Gray Hulk is is smart. He's just kind of a thug though. Very major thug, I guess you could say. But Rick Jones as the Hulk, he still maintains his mind, but he knows he has to control those Hulk impulses. So in this issue, Rick goes into the cave where I guess the Hulk or Bruce Banner goes to, where he has a secret lab in there to get away from everything. And as Rick goes in there, he is pretty much, I don't want to use the word attack, but he's pretty much taken in by these creatures. And these creatures learn how to speak English thanks to the computers that Bruce Banner had. In a way, when you think about it, it sounds ridiculous, and coming from Alan Milgrom, I could see it because he's a very funny guy. Not just a, awesome artist and really good compositions, by the way, at times. Also, very good writer when he wants to be. And sometimes he gets a little. He likes to explore things that a little bit. Some people might find it corny. Some people might find it unusual, but here's the gist of it. What happens if Hulk was not the only one that was transformed? What if Bruce Banner wasn't the only one that was transformed into the Hulk? when that gamma ray explosion happened. What if the bugs that were in the desert also were affected? So that's an interesting, fascinating concept right there, and this is what this issue is about. What if these bugs who can't go back to living with their own families, bug families, because they're too big and they're too dangerous, so now they're pretty much left to themselves, lizards and scorpions and these other behemoths that are now regained some sort of consciousness and are able to speak, albeit not the greatest English, but enough English for them to communicate with Rick Jones. And when Rick turns into the Hulk, they realize that he's just like them, and they start to befriend him. And so we'll just leave it at that, because that's the main summary of the story. But things happen that you have to read the issues. What if the bugs and the lizards were also affected by the gamma rays during that explosion that turned Bruce Banner into the Hulk? Interesting concept, I could say. Now, this issue, again, was written and penciled by Alan Milgrom. I remember reading and I was like, oh man, what happened to Peter David? And, Peter David was no doubt instrumental for making Incredible Hulk popular back in the, I guess you could say, the late 80s or the mid 80s, right? And then you had what is his name, the artist who drew The Pit, one of the Image creators, who got popular also from the Incredible Hulk. Definitely made some issues that were interesting. But what's interesting, though, is that the following issue, we would have someone named Todd McFarlane who would pencil the next issue of the Incredible Hulk instead of Alan Milgrom. But for the most part, this was a good issue. It was a fun issue. It's something to read that was quick. Just an interesting concept of what if the lizards and the bugs were also exposed to the gamma ray. In a way, it is kind of corny, because you're like, yeah, bugs learn how to use a computer and to learn English. But if anything, it's just Alan Milgrom took a stab of taking it on in such a concept, and it may be a little audacious, but hey, I could see I could see where he was coming from for the most part. So that's pretty much it for the Incredible Hulk. I will continue on doing a few more issues before I switch over to the Fantastic Four or Thor. I did so many of other titles already, and I still have to do several Amazing Spider-Man. There's so much I have in my comic book collection that I definitely have to go through. I think one of the challenging things is what to read, because I have so much. And some people may wonder, how the heck did you get these so much comic books? And it's real. I talked about how I collected comic books. I had a big collection, then I had to sell it because my father didn't like me reading comic books anymore because I was older. So I sold it, and then I lost that collection. I was able to rebuild it again in my college years and get the issues that I once had. And then I ended up selling it again to a relative for a really cheap price, because I said, you know what? I'm not going to read any comic books anymore. Everything is going digital. And I started, remember when Marvel started releasing digital on CD? I started getting those. And I said, okay, I don't need Spider-Man, X-Men, Hulk, all that, Captain America anymore, because I have it on disc. So I sold my comic book issues. But then, you know what? You have regrets. And I ended up getting these issues once again. Not all of them. For example, the X-Men's were the first appearance of Deadpool or the first appearance of Gambit, stuff like that. I sold to that was part of my collection. I sold to a relative for very cheap. I think I sold probably hundreds or maybe thousands of dollars worth of comic books just for like $300 or something like that. And the interesting thing is that I instantly regretted it, because I know I could have got more, but at the same time I was thinking, oh, you know what, I'm going digital now. Who needs paper comic books? And then I realized, you know what, as much as I enjoy digital, I enjoy reading it, holding it in my hands, and just reading it that way. I know a lot of people have moved on, become more digital, as with video games and films and so forth. And I moved digitally with music and films, and as well. But the thing is, nothing beats reading a comic book in your hands, and especially if you grew up that way. So, but that's just me. I don't know about how you feel about it. I know a lot of people are more into trade paperbacks or going digital. But for me, it's just, you can get these comics fairly cheap these days. I've never looked at comic books as a sort of an investment like some people do. But for me, it was just more of reading it. So reading it, enjoying it, and getting, being back to, I guess it's more of a nostalgia factor, if anything. And I think with Incredible Hulk, it's interesting because I was never such a big Hulk fan growing up, but I'm reading it a lot now. I did have Hulk issues, but that would happen later on towards, I guess, the 90s or so. The only Incredible Hulk ones that I would read if it deals with the Avengers or fighting against a thing. But now I have such a big Incredible Hulk collection that, it's really interesting to read how Hulk was during the decades. So, anyway, I'll leave it at that. You all take care. Wink, wink, and see you later, everyone. Bye-bye.